Are people crazy to have given Child so much money for his Jack Reacher novels? His novel, The Killing Floor, is a crock of excrement. How did that novel launch an entire series of more than 20 books? Are you people retarded to give Child money and make him a fucking millionaire when he writes worse than a creative fifth grader would be capable of writing? When he writes sentences like, "We held hands," and then the next sentence is, "My left, her right"? What, this dumbass can't figure out how to make that into one smooth, flowing sentence? The sentence fragments are comical and annoying. The entire Jack Reacher books are written with them. I thought Jack Reacher would be some sort of passable reading material. How, otherwise, would they get published? How, otherwise, would they be so popular? So popular that I hear about Jack Reacher novels everywhere, while hardly hearing about other writers who write 10 times better. Instead, Jack Reacher novels read like a retard typed them up in one sitting and never edited his writing. Cars are constantly nosing into places in that book. Nosing and nosing. Cars constantly nosing. Everyone constantly finishing every phrase they speak with the word right, right? Let's mention all the plot holes in the first Jack Reacher book. Jack Reacher wears the same clothes all day without washing them and wanders around like a bum. Some Playboy bunny-looking police officer lady has sex with him despite the fact he was arrested earlier, and then goes off into a hotel room with him even though he is a total stranger. Like a police officer would not be wary of a total stranger. Described as the best police officer on the force, she doesn't care that this man she is sleeping with has killed several people in town. I guess they were bad people, but she's still supposed to be upholding the law. The Secret Service is responsible for investigating counterfeiting, not Treasury, yet Child wrote that it's the Treasury. Child is a British liberal idiot. A Bitch-Ritish liberal idiot. He wrote about America while living in England without apparently doing any research, constantly making mistakes like confusing Marine bases with Army bases in these books. Jack Reacher leaves a car at an airport in the southern United States with 3 dead bodies inside the trunk, in muggy climate, and apparently the bodies never stink for 3 weeks to draw attention. Joe's girlfriend getting swept away in airport traffic and forced to go to an area of the airport she didn't want to go. This is Georgia, right? I realize it is a bigger airport, but there would not be that many people getting off the plane to make it impossible to force your way out. It isn't a mosh pit. It is people exiting a plane. And it is September, not exactly prime travel time with big crowds like November or December. The book is taking place in a state of Georgia in September, and yet this guy writes that the sun is setting between 6:30 and 7 p.m. He uses the word shrugged constantly. Everyone is shrugging all the time in the book. People shrug 123 times in the book. Also, as you might expect from a book like this, there is a lot of talk about guns. But the author obviously knows nothing about firearms, other than what he's seen in movies. He has a .22 caliber, a very weak small caliber round, completely blowing a man's face off. In reality, .22 caliber wounds have been mistaken for ice pick stabs. In another scene, a man is literally blown through the air and out of his shoes by a .44 Magnum. He also subscribes to the room-clearing myth of the shotgun, i.e. that pellets spread out in a wide cone, destroying anything in front of the gun. In reality, a typical shotgun pattern is about 5 inches wide at 5 yards, and still only 18 inches at 30 yards. The weapon his hero chooses is a Desert Eagle .44 Magnum pistol, a comic book gun almost 12 inches long and weighing 5 pounds loaded, that has no real-world application beyond, perhaps, the eccentric sport of big-game pistol hunting. The author's description of action scenes is confused and hard to believe. There is a scene where he has Jack Reacher killing bad guys, armed with guns, using only a sap and a knife, but there is no clear explanation of how he is able to close with them without getting shot. In the same scene, the author seems to have Jack carrying a knife in one hand and a sap in the other, but somehow he is also able to carry a shotgun. The characters appear unrealistic in their actions. There is insufficient reason to explain Jack Reacher's bizarre, vagrant lifestyle, or how he supports himself financially. The romantic relationship is totally unbelievable. Why would a beautiful female police officer instantly throw herself at Jack Reacher, a complete stranger who is homeless, under arrest for murder, and wearing thrift shop clothing? I just don't understand how this book can get any positive reviews. The author makes all sorts of false assumptions and ridiculous statements. I mean, really. The guard gives me a nod, which says that if this turns out to be a mistake, he was just doing his job. I give him a nod, which says he is wasting his time. What the fuck do these nods look like? If this book ever saw a real editor, I'll eat my shorts. The characters are not believable. The grammar is terrible. The story is weak. The plot devices are many, and seem to crop up out of nowhere. Jack hopped on a flight from Atlanta to DC without an ID or a credit card? Really? The FBI agent couldn't be stopped by a .44 Magnum in his chest? On and on. Not sure if Mr. Child knows how things happen in the real world, but I cannot jump into his, where things seem to happen or not happen for no reason at all. The top guy, the brilliant man who heads the counterfeit division of the Treasury Department, is brutally killed in a small hick town, and there is no investigation? No need. Let the acting police chief, acting because the former chief and his wife were brutally murdered in the same week, take care of it. Have Reacher go to a big bank in Atlanta, and because he says he is a friend of former key employee, the bank gives him all the information on the employee who happened to be let go 18 months ago. I have to stop there. Are we on Earth? Not only flawed, but silly, stupid, shows a lack of knowledge of human nature, society, and assumes his readers are unthinking fools. I can't believe it. Jack Reacher books read like a first grader wrote them, like something that's the worst of self-published offerings you could ever find. And yet this guy has sold millions of these rotten books. Fucking Hollywood is making movies out of them with this faggot Tom Cruise. Hollywood will never make a James Grider movie, but they go and make a Jack Reacher movie. Not just one, but two, and maybe three. Jack Reacher is 6 foot 5 inches tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, as muscular as the Terminator, and has zero personality. James Grider should kill Jack Reacher if Jack Reacher ever comes for him. The fucking Twilight books are written better than Jack Reacher books. You owe me to buy a James Grider novel for every Jack Reacher novel you might have bought. No one has a right to criticize my writing or call it shit if you enjoy reading Jack Reacher novels. If you think there is nothing wrong with Jack Reacher novels. You would think any editor or publisher would dump the Jack Reacher manuscript in the wastebasket after sampling a page or two. But no, instead it's being sold, and that British libtard is making millions off of it, while I get nothing. Getting back to bashing Jack Reacher novels. At one point, Reacher hadn't showered in 3 or 4 days, including a couple of days in jail, and he gets laid. A .22 caliber round blows somebody's face off, which is complete bull semen. A .22 caliber round will leave something like an ice pick stab for a wound. He writes that a 12-year-old white boy asks his dad to kill a black man for him, and the father simply does it, and no one investigates, because the novel takes place in the South, in the year 1996, and apparently this British retard believes, thanks to the mainstream liberal lying media's deceitful portrayals, is that everyone in the South just kills black people for the sake of racism all the time, and it's legal, I guess. Let's examine the second Jack Reacher novel, Die Trying. This has to be one of the poorest plots in history. Child is trying to convince the reader that the director of the FBI and head of Joint Chiefs of Staff would venture out unsupported into nowhere land on a pathetic crusade is a joke. The characters do not even act consistently in character. The first 10 or so pages detail ruthless and sadistic killings of innocent civilians, but when Reacher is accidentally snared as an extra catch in a kidnapping, he is somehow not killed at the first opportunity. The story for Reacher should have ended right there, and frankly, I should have put the book down right there. Reacher is not killed after his multiple escapes and recaptures, and general antagonistic behavior, but is instead shown around the bad guy's operation while they tell him all about themselves. Yeah, right, that would happen. The actions of the FBI, Army, and the President of the United States are completely idiotic, yet are portrayed as being astute, calculating, and even heroic. Does it seem remotely likely that 3 FBI agents in street clothes and armed with government-issue .38s would try to attempt a rescue mission against a 100-man, heavily armed militia stronghold deep in the mountains of Montana. How do you think that goes? Especially when two of those agents are on the take to the militia. Then the genius bad guy gloats over the radio that he had an agent on the take instead of turning them back out to continue spying. That makes sense. Lee Child does not make sense. Lee Bitchild. Lee Bitchild. Even his basic descriptions are inaccurate, like repeatedly describing semi-automatic pistols as automatics, or describing a bolt-action rifle as rapid fire. Does he not know how a bolt-action rifle or a semi-automatic handgun works? Small details will ruin a book for me. When he describes a character removing the safety from a Sig Sauer pistol, it makes me wonder how much he researches his books. Sig Sauers have no safety. Or when he inaccurately describes the iron sight system on an M16 rifle, it shows his lack of basic knowledge regarding firearms. It is quite obvious Mr. Child has never touched or fired a gun in his life. That could be acceptable if the rest of the book wasn't chock full of errors and poor representations. The author portrays the FBI agents as underpaid, corrupt, and incompetent, who run around in the woods in suits and dress shoes, carrying 38 revolvers as their weapons, and driving used sedans or their own personal cars. Is he writing about agents from the 1930s? FBI agents make $140,000 a year, and they don't send 3 off into the woods in 3-piece suits to tackle an armed militia. One agent decides to sell out his partners and his country so he can have a new $35,000 Ford Explorer. Pathetic. His portrayal of the militia members is also sophomoric and not well fleshed out. And he does an equally poor job describing the US military characters. In several scenes, his main hero, Reacher, who comes from an elite military unit. For Mr. Child's information, military police are not considered elite commando units in the US military, is running low on ammunition, but leaves behind fully loaded weapons and spare magazines as he does battle. So he is running low on ammunition, and he keeps killing bad guy after bad guy, but he doesn't pick up their weapons or their ammunition after he kills them. In one scene, Reacher decides to talk down 2 attack dogs rather than kill them, and he somehow succeeds. The errors are much more numerous, and too many to recall or list here. The book stretches the bounds of common sense, and was hard to read. He also weaves his anti-Second Amendment progressive ideology into nearly every chapter. Of course, when you are a right-wing, pro-gun militia, you have to be racist, according to Child. There is over 400 groups just like that, right in the all USA. And not just racist, Nazi-type racist. Of course, it's much easier to hate pro-constitutionalists when you artificially demonized them with over-the-top racism not seen since the Nazis marched across Europe. Yeah, basically, Lee Child is a libtard, so anyone who is pro-Constitution and believes in the Second Amendment is a psychopathic Nazi. He even writes laughable sentences like, children and shotguns don't mix. Additionally, he writes that a town looks beautiful and neat because of high taxes being put to work. Now, towns look good because of good economy. Taxing people creates a shitty economy. Highest taxed cities and towns usually look like shit. A ton of unstable dynamite inside a panel truck explodes, completely vaporizing the truck without cratering the road it's rolling over. And the explosion doesn't even damage a helicopter, hovering less than 75 yards away. Comparison. Look what happened to the truck, road, and building in Oklahoma. But the problem is the issues Lee Child tries to ridicule, such as the Federal Reserve, constitutional violations, ever-omnipotent government. These are real and serious issues, and books like Die Trying seek to tar those who are concerned with such matters by association with armed crazies in fatigues. In fact, the people really concerned about such matters are mostly non-violent types, respectful of other folks' liberty and property. Many such people are naturally and unknowingly following the non-aggression principle. By contrast, my character named James Grider from the novel Impact, written by E. Paula Wilson for $2.99, has become fed up and has ceased practicing the non-aggression principle because he is mentally ill, and a magical device has allowed him to get away with murder in a way that forensic science can't prove he did anything. All these ridiculous stupidities that I have pointed out in Lee Bitchild's books, all this terrible writing, and yet somehow Lee Child's novel The Killing Floor wins the Anthony Award, the Barry Award, Japan Adventure Fiction Association Prize, Divi's Award nomination, Macavity Award nomination. Meanwhile, I can't sell my Impact, a James Grider novel, and you crazy fucks are instead giving Lee Child $9.99 for the Kindle editions of his books. Are you crazy to give $9.99 for a retarded Jack Reacher book, but refuse to give only $2.99 for Impact, a James Grider novel written by E. Paula Wilson? Impact, a James Grider novel, wipes the killing floor with the novel like The Killing Floor. James Grider needs to meet Jack Reabitcher at some point and kill him. Jack Reabitcher. Are you crazy? They publish Jack Reabitcher, but would refuse to publish or edit my James Grider novel. And Lee Child gets to write more than 20 books about Jack Reabitcher. How am I going to write more than 20 James Grider books if I don't have the money to survive from selling the first James Grider book, which is Impact? However, I shouldn't bash Lee Child for getting the facts wrong too much, because he wrote Killing Floor in 1996. The internet wasn't well developed back then. He didn't have Wikipedia, and he didn't have YouTube videos or websites to pirate books from to look shit up. There are so many gun channels on YouTube. If I need to see what kind of a bullet hole certain types of ammunition will make, I can do that easily. A lot of questions can be answered about life on YouTube. You can see how certain places look. Google Earth shows you how places look, street views and stuff. You can download manuals to various things for free. Lee Child didn't have that available back in 1996. He could have gone to the library, I suppose, and perused books for research and taken notes. Not having internet, though, does not explain how every other writer can get things way more accurately for books written in the years prior to the internet. Wipes the killing floor with the novel like The Killing Floor. James Glider needs to meet Jack Reabitcher at some point and kill him. Jack Reabitcher